Welcome to the Procurement Software Podcast, where we aim to educate and inspire you about how technology is changing and shaping our profession. The truth is, there's never been a more exciting time to be in procurement, but only if you're one of those organizations that's embracing the change and driving new developments. And this podcast is all about giving you the tools to help you get there. So buckle up and let's get right into this week's show. Greetings, all you fellow procurement tech fanboys and fangirls out there. Welcome to another episode of the Procurement Software Podcast. I'm your host, James Meads, and today's episode is going to take a look at how procurement can move away from being a back office function. Even in 2024, we're still talking about this topic. And while in many organizations, procurement has gained its reputation as being a strategic value-adding function, there are many other organizations where it's still being held back by being seen as this more administrative department. So in today's episode, we're going to look at, is procurement still considered to be a back office function in 2024? And if it is, why does it get labeled as a back office function? How procurement technology can be a key enabler to getting us away from that. The easiest ways to get ROI on procurement tech if you are looking to have some software to move you away from that situation, and also looking at the people factor and how that is key to moving away from procurement being administrative and to be much more of a strategic function. So I'm going to share a little story before we dig in of how I got into procurement. Everyone has their own story. Most people tend to fall into the profession, but I'm going to go back 25 years, back to 1999, because that's the year that I first tasted procurement. I was doing a summer job as a buying assistant in an automotive gearbox manufacturing company in my hometown in the Birmingham area of the UK. And procurement, or purchasing as it was usually called back then, was most definitely a back office function in most organizations back at the turn of the millennium. Yes, certain sectors were starting to move down that direction of procurement becoming a little bit more strategic. Yes, there was some sourcing and supplier management involved as part of the team's activity that I was working in that summer in this summer job, but the majority of the work was very much tactical and administrative buying. And if we fast forward 25 years, we're in 2024 now, and procurement teams are still getting trapped in this. Not all of them, but certainly in sort of SMEs and in mid-sized businesses, I think it's fair to say that a lot of organizations are still battling with this. So why are we still discussing these challenges that we've been trying to grow out of for the past 20 plus years? And how do we fix it? So let's first look at, why does procurement get labeled or get pigeonholed as a back office function? I think it ultimately comes down to one or more of these four prevailing factors. So number one is having misaligned business objectives. That's a key. If procurement is siloed and doesn't really strategically communicate with the rest of the business, that's a big one. Poor data often hampers us to have fact-based discussions with our stakeholders. The classic example of Dave in maintenance says this supplier's crap, and we've got no data to argue against him and prove him wrong. Inadequate technology or clunky technology. If you're trying to run procurement in an accounting system or in an ERP system that just isn't fit for function, most of these systems enable you to do the basics of procure to pay, maybe some scheduling and inventory management, but they certainly don't do things like sourcing and supplier management and contract management and all of the other aspects. That's even without looking into the more newer sort of sustainability, ESG type of stuff that procurement's being involved in these days. It's inevitably going to have limitations on how strategic you can be to the organization. And then finally, just lack of mandate. If procurement isn't mandated to act in a strategic manner, then guess what? It's going to essentially be a very reactive function. And these, unfortunately, are all usually a product of either the procurement leadership or the team that they have. But they can also be heavily influenced by the culture and the political landscape of the organization too. But one thing is clear, in a well-run procurement organization that is aligned to the business and its wider objectives, in an organization that has a competent team and that has user-friendly procurement tools, it's almost never seen as being a back office function. And that's the key message that I want to get across in today's episode. So let's take a look at why procurement technology is a key enabler here. So if your organization sees procurement as being a more tactical back office function, if you're working in one of those teams, then you need to be quite worried, because a lot of these tactical back office tasks can already be automated. Software is already out there. And the only reason why procurement software hasn't already eliminated more tactical and operational procurement roles is that historically, a lot of digital procurement implementations have had pretty low rates of adoption. And there's perhaps been a reticence by the C-suite to invest in procurement as a function as a result of that. So I think firstly, there's a lack of awareness around some of the newer best of breed modern procurement tools that are out there. Some of these legacy applications that perhaps a number of you have used or are using in your organizations have given procurement technology a bad name in general in some quarters. And secondly, it's not easy for procurement leaders to get a budget from the CFO for technology. And when they do, as I mentioned, historically, there have been a lot of failed digital transformations out there that sort of litter the roadside, so to speak. So I think what we need to look at is there's an increasing trend now, especially outside of larger enterprises. If I look at SMEs and mid-market businesses, there's an increasing trend to opt for best of breed digital procurement tools that have a better user experience and have shorter implementation times. And by design, therefore, they're going to have a faster ROI. And these tools are often brought in to digitize and automate the more tactical purchasing and buying tasks. It's not going to take over the more nuanced and complex areas of our roles that typically require the softer skills that we hear so much about these days. Soft skills in procurement, emotional intelligence. Technology is not going to take over that part of your job. What it is going to do is going to ditch a lot of the administrative stuff that you're getting lumped with at the moment. So by implementing technology, it's going to get you out of this hamster wheel of you don't have time to do category management or SRM because you're stuck dealing with accounts payable issues, or you're stuck dealing with delivery problems or with poor supplier data. It's this vicious circle. It's this hamster wheel that you're in. You're only going to get the chance to do things like category management and SRM and sustainability if your time is freed up to be able to do it. But let's be honest, procurement leaders are not going to get more procurement heads, more resources, unless they can prove that those resources are delivering value to the business. And if procurement's essentially just dealing with tactical and operational stuff, then you're never going to get extra heads. So the easiest way that you're going to be able to get an ROI on procurement tech is being able to automate those administrative and transactional type of tasks. Then having good spend data is going to give you a foundation to do things like category management and SRM and sustainability. You need to have clear visibility of all of your contracts and your terms, to be able to understand, what's your exposure out there. If you don't know what contracts you've got, you're kind of flying blind in terms of being able to manage your supply base. And then bringing all of that together and having some type of collaboration tool that can track performance, both of your suppliers, but also of your procurement and wider business value-driven initiatives, to be able to see that as a joint objective and to be able to track and celebrate your wins. Without the basics, your team is like a sailing crew without a compass. And I know we've covered this on previous podcasts and in past blog posts on some of the challenges around this. When it comes to sourcing the right procurement software and finding a budget, especially if there's no clear money earmarked for investment into procurement, this is where we've got you covered. So you can download our free tech maps. If you go to store.procurementsoftware.site, you can download a visual one-pager as a PDF. We've got 3 separate tech maps, one for small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, one for the mid-market, and one for enterprise, because different procurement tech serves a different market. If you need to do more detailed analysis and have different data points, then the best thing that you can do is to subscribe to our back-end database. We have a 1-year subscription, which is more aimed towards consultancies and solution providers and center of excellence leaders in bigger organizations, because they would need typically continuous access to something like this. Or if you're a practitioner on a one-time project and you just need access for a short period of time, we also have a 3-month subscription, which is priced much more competitively to enable that to be affordable to the small guy or girl. What I mean by that is, if you're in a smaller organization and you have a one-time digital procurement project that you want to deliver, you can just go and buy our database backend for 3 months, and you can get all of the data points to do and or searches on all of the different solutions that are in our database. So let's look at the people aspect. The right people, and the emphasis there is on the word right, are the key ingredient. So as we know, software alone is not going to be the magic bullet. It's not going to be the thing that shifts a procurement department's modus operandi from being tactical to strategic on its own. If you've got a team that don't want to grow and are just happy plodding along doing repetitive administrative work, let's be honest and face facts that you're probably going to have to make some changes within your team. The team members that are keen to future-proof their roles and are keen to learn and grow, they're the ones that you need to invest in, to mentor and support, because they will be your most loyal employees as you go on this journey. For the ones that aren't interested, it's better to acknowledge this early, because these are the ones that are keeping you stuck in this silo with your procurement team being a back office function. If need be, if you're a head of procurement, you probably need to involve HR and help them find alternative roles within the business, especially if you're in a country where labor laws prevent you from just firing people at random. I know it's pretty easy to do that in places like the US, but especially if you're listening to this in Europe, you can't do that. So you don't want them holding your team back. If they're infusing negative energy into your team and you want to take procurement on a journey from being a very back office tactical department to being more strategic, you've got to acknowledge that. It's not easy, but you're going to have to acknowledge that. Tech can be the enabler, but having the right team leadership and team capabilities are part and parcel of that whole package. And I'd also go as far as to say that a certain degree of centralization is also needed too. If you're in a completely decentralized procurement team, it can be hampered because often, local buying roles are usually pretty junior team members. If you have a plant or a branch office purchasing function, more senior stakeholders within that entity will often walk all over those people, because just the hierarchical difference between, a plant manager or a head of HR in that environment, hierarchically, they're a lot more senior than a plant purchasing lead or a branch office buyer. Difficult for them to talk on an equal level with some of the more senior stakeholders. So in these types of scenarios, even if procurement roles at a corporate level do exist, they can be quite futile if organizations are very siloed and if these local buying roles report into local operations in that site or in that country. So they're just a few things to look at of if procurement is being seen as a back office function, or if you're stuck in that silo and you can't really escape from it. We've spoken a little bit about tech and also about people and how it's a joined up approach to change both of them to be able to get out of that vicious cycle, to be able to get out of that hamster wheel of not really being able to make progress. So to conclude, even though we shouldn't be discussing this in 2024, we still are. And we've come a long way, but we're still on a journey. So while technology can't solve it on its own, has to be a core part of any procurement leader's roadmap to move from being a back office to a strategic value-driven team. But you can't leave the people factor behind and try to solve it with technology alone. Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode. We'll be back again same time next week. Until then, before I sign off, please do give us a follow on whichever podcast platform you listen to us on, be it Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube Music, or wherever it might be. Just hit that subscribe or that follow button and you will be notified every time we release a new episode, which is usually every Wednesday. Until next week, take care wherever you are, and bye for now.